Hello, everyone. Welcome to How to Work with a Recruiter and Stand Out During High Unemployment. I'm just going to give it another minute or two here to let a few more people log in just in case, and then we will be getting started. Be right back. Okay, morning, everyone. Let's get this party started. I'd like to share some information with you. First of all, I'm Marnie Barnes. I've been a recruiter for about 12 years. I'm actually currently with Resolute Technology Solutions. I function as an internal recruiter for Resolute, as well as I do still function in the capacity of an agency recruiter, but on the behalf of our clients that we're working with for IT projects. So got a lot of experience on the recruiting side, and that actually includes recruiting from both sides of the fence. The reason I actually became a recruiter was because at one point in time I was looking for work. Just like many of you, I was in a situation where I was not in a job that was a great fit for me from a cultural perspective, and I needed to make a change, and I hadn't looked for work really ever. I had always just sort of landed into the jobs that seemed to be how I managed to work my way to recruiting. But at the end of the day, for the first time in my life, I went out on interviews and was headhunting for places to work, for lack of better words. So, you know, with some humor about recruiting and what recruiting is, I didn't know much about recruiting back then, and it was quite the introduction, getting to know what recruiters do and how they function. You know, we always joke around, or I always joke around, that I'm a bit of an online stalking. Well, I guess that's a strong word. I prefer intense research of an individual. So we are headhunters. Our job as a recruiter is to find people and match them to the positions that we currently have available, whether that's an internal recruitment or an internal or external recruitment with a client. So why am I here? What does a recruiter actually do? And how can I help you? How can I help make this process a little bit easier for you? I am here because I was on the other side. Like I said, I was looking for work once upon a time, and I fell into a recruitment role by meeting with a recruiter for an administrative role that I applied for, and I wasn't the right fit. And that particular recruiter happened to see that I might be a fit for recruitment. That individual was actually Jenna Buckley, and she was instrumental in actually introducing this whole idea of a career to me when I first spoke to her on the phone a long time ago. So what do recruiters actually do? We match candidates to roles. We gather information from the candidate and we share it with the hiring manager. That's our job. We are in the business of figuring out with a hiring manager what it is that they are trying to fill, what their position requirements are. And it's our job to then go out to the market and find that, whether that's through passive candidates that are currently employed and we are trying to make contact with and headhunt, or through candidates who are applying directly to the roles. So matching clients and candidates to each other is what we do. That is our job. We also manage the relationship between the hiring manager and the candidate. So what that means, straight to the point, is that we're trying to manage the expectations of a candidate and give them as much information on the hiring company, the hiring manager, and the opportunity as we possibly can. We do the same thing on the other side of the fence. We actually meet with hiring managers. We try to figure out what it is exactly that they are looking for. And then honestly, our job as a recruiter is to help manage the expectations of the hiring manager as well. One of the biggest challenges that recruiters face is opportunities that we are posting that have an immense amount of requirements. So often the resources at an organization are stretched, which is why they're working with recruiters. They don't have the opportunity to fill these roles themselves, and so they are looking for us to match their requirements. Many times those requirements are quite in-depth, quite technical, quite intense, and we as recruiters really try to work with the hiring managers to help them understand the market. So we work with both sides very closely. We're managing candidate expectations in regards to trying to be as transparent as possible and figure out what you bring to the table as closely as we can, as well as matching that with the opportunity and managing the hiring expectations on the other side that some of these requirements might be very hybrid or might need a little more help in regards to, we need to uncheck a few of those boxes and look at hiring for potential sometimes. So we stretch hiring managers' expectations. We're responsible for the candidate experience. So as soon as a candidate is introduced to an organization or an opportunity that I am recruiting for, or recruiters are recruiting for, it's whether we're recruiting for an agency and working with multiple clients or whether we're recruiting internally, we are trying to manage the brand of the organization as well. So we are trying to be transparent about what the culture looks like. It's important for us to share what the culture of an organization looks like so that you can understand what you're getting yourself into. Is this going to be a fit? Everything comes down to fit when it comes to recruiting, and that not only includes the technical skill sets, but it also includes the culture of an organization. So we are trying to market a positive brand for our clients, for our hiring managers, for our companies out into the marketplace, and make sure that we're matching candidates that are going to thrive in those environments first and foremost. We do headhunt. We actively pursue passive candidates for hard to fill roles. So I am sure that often you've heard from recruiters, or you've heard about recruiters reaching out and sharing opportunities, looking for referrals. We're consistently and constantly trying to make sure that we are not only presenting candidates to our clients that actually have applied for the opportunities, but we are also looking for people who are maybe happily employed and are looking for a new opportunity as well. So this is where I'm going to get pretty frank and honest. Not everyone has had a great experience with a recruiter. Sometimes the processes around recruitment can be really quite frustrating for a candidate, and sometimes also frustrating for the recruiter as well as the hiring manager. Recruitment is not as easy of a job as you would think. I'm going to turn my camera off here just so you guys have the full screen. But what have your experiences looked like working with a recruiter? Have you had good experiences? Have you had bad experiences? Is that experience related to the recruiter themselves, or is it related to the applicant tracking system? Is it related to trying to fill out all the different types of paperwork that are required by the hiring manager? We know this is a tough process, and it's a tough process because you're typically in a situation when you're looking for work where you're in need of making a change. Something is prompting that change, and that can come with anxiety and stress and the feeling that you're not entirely certain how to approach this. So I'm putting up this screen because I quite often laugh about this and the reputation that comes with actually being a recruiter. You can see here, recruiters are scum, recruiters are useless. This is an older screen, but I did search this again yesterday, and I think some of the things that came up are recruiters are shady, recruiters are incompetent. Just like doctors, just like police officers, just like any type of career that you're going to be looking at, you're going to have good people and you're going to have not so great people. Not everyone is as good at being a recruiter as they could be. And so, I would suggest that when you are going out to look at recruiters, I mean, this is the elephant in the room. Recruiters don't always have the best reputation. There are awesome recruiters out there. And I think part of the problem that leads to this idea that recruiters are maybe not helpful is that people don't understand how to work with them or what we actually do. What we don't do is just as important as what we do. So a lot of times when I met with a candidate, especially when I first started recruiting, candidates had expectations of me that I was going to find them a job. That was my job, was to find them a job. We actually can't promise you that. We shouldn't promise you that. It's not up to us to find you a job. It's up to us to make sure that first and foremost, you're a fit for the opportunity that we're looking for, that we're looking to fill. And then it's our job to present you properly to the organization and work with the organization to help them see what we saw in you to bring you to the table. But we can't promise you a job. And once we hand you over to that organization, once they decide to meet with you, the interview, it's up to you. From there, it's up to you. We can manage a bunch of the processes around that, from negotiations to setting up interviews to giving you information to help you be prepared. That is actually a huge bonus to working with a recruiter, is having the information to be able to understand the organization that you're working with. You get a lens into a world that you maybe don't have a lot of information about. Recruiters should have more of that when you're working with them. We don't rewrite resumes. We can make suggestions about small tweaks that you should be making to your resume, but there are resources out there that are really good at this. Most recruiters can make suggestions. We can make suggestions for LinkedIn profiles, but it's really not our job as per se to rewrite your resume. Just we aren't here for that purpose. On that note, there's some amazing people located here in the city that actually help you tell stories about your resume, about your career. A resume is a story, and it's a story of where you've been and where you want to go. And there are compelling ways to create those resumes that are clean and interesting and will get the attention of the people that you're trying to reach out to. So Carrie Twig is a really talented resume storyteller, I guess is what I would like to call her. She works with you and helps you write your resume in a way that will honestly bring you the attention that you're looking for. She's actually quite busy, so I asked her for some referrals. She's also worked with Kamara Toffolo. That's another referral here in the city for someone that you could work with on improving the appearance of your resume and the story that your resume is trying to tell. If there's anybody here from the States, there's a recruiter in the States who actually does help with resumes, and he's ridiculously good at it. His name is Adam Karpiak. And not only that, he recruits on the finance side, and he's an incredible resource on the American side of the recruitment business. So I wanted to throw his name in there because I know he's doing some really good work helping people rewrite their resumes right now. What we can do to help, we can offer suggestions on how to get found. You know, I spoke to someone a few weeks ago who had been at the same company for a number of years, and sometimes as a recruiter, I think we forget what people don't understand about going out to work. They've been employed for a long time. Suddenly in this market, they're experiencing job loss, which is incredibly disorienting. And everything has changed. Everything about how people recruit has changed. It used to be that you picked up a phone and you called people. Now everything is online. So we can actually propose modifications to resumes in LinkedIn and help you understand what you should be doing so that we can actually find you. We want to help build trust. When we're talking to candidates and hiring managers alike, trust is a big deal. And if you want to go back to that screen a few minutes ago where it said recruiters are scum, not all recruiters are scum. So many of us really truly care about you and what you're trying to do. And we understand what it's like to be on that side of the world and looking for work. That's how most of us got into this business in the first place. You know, I joke around that I'm an online stalker. I also joke around that I'm an HR social worker. I deal so often with people who are in career situations that are very uncomfortable for them, aren't the right fit. You know, a lot of us tie our identities to our careers. And when we experience those things, it's, like I said, incredibly disorienting and incredibly overwhelming. So, you know, it's really important to us that we're building trust with you. Transparency is everything. Tell us what you're actually looking for. Tell us what you really want from your career. We want to know where you're going to thrive. We want to understand what you love to do. We want to know what your expectations are around salary. If you can build that trust with us and tell us who you're working with. It's hard when you're working with 15 recruiters, not because you shouldn't be working with 15 recruiters, although I do highly recommend that you just find a couple that you trust and are really capable of working closely with you and develop a relationship with them. But tell us what you're working on so that we understand what we're up against. It's important for us to know. We can also share information with you about organizations and their culture. We have a lot of information, especially agency recruiters. We work across the board with hundreds of clients on a regular basis. So we can help you identify and actually understand the job acceptance criteria. So what that means is we have an insight over and above the job description. Most recruiters do. And we can actually help you put the words in your resume or put the words in your LinkedIn profile. We call them keywords that will help you get through the applicant tracking systems and will actually help you get through to the hiring manager. You know, when a hiring manager puts up a job or when a recruiter puts up a job, 9 times out of 10, they have more than one job. So let's say, for example, a recruiter has 20 projects that they're working on, 20 searches that they're working on. We are seeing hundreds of resumes a week, hundreds of them. and trying to get through all those resumes, we're looking for certain keywords, and we tend to go through them very truthfully and honestly. When you're working with a recruiter, you're going through those resumes very, very quickly. We're opening them up. There's Google statistics that talk about when you do a Google search, you don't go to the second page. You typically stay on the first page. Very, very few people go to the second page. So if you're looking at a hiring manager who is also working on changing policies for companies for COVID, for example, or are suddenly working from home, they have time constraints, they're not only 100% responsible. Our hiring managers here are not only responsible for interviewing the candidates that I'm putting in front of them, but they're also responsible for running their business and running their areas. So their ability to focus on what the recruitment side of the business is actually a very small percentage. Recruiters themselves have a high number of projects. So again, we tend to look at the resumes very, very quickly. We will scan that first page looking for what we need. The other thing recruiters can help with is compelling approaches for creative offers. One of the things that we do have is insight into the organizations that we're working with. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that there are other opportunities within organizations for career advancement, let's say, or for benefits, for bonuses, for maybe a little more vacation if you happen to be in a position where you're looking at an opportunity that might take you a step back. And I'll give you a personal example on that. When I went into recruiting, I actually took a 50% pay cut. I took a 50% pay cut because I wanted out of the industry I was in, and I wanted into an industry that I felt was going to take me to pretty much exactly where I am today. And I loved the idea of it. I still love this job. What it gave me was actual vacation for the first time in my life. I'd been in retail previous to that, and I had never had 2 weeks vacation, not in the whole time I had been working since I was 17 years old. So the perks that came along with making that career change. Now, granted, I was in a position where I could do that, but it was really, really important, and it made all the difference in the world. So working with a recruiter, you can find ways to put together an offer that is actually compelling, because we can take care of some of those negotiations on your behalf. We should also be able to provide feedback from interviews. I can tell you that doesn't always happen, but we can do our best to make sure that you get the feedback that you're looking for. I personally tend to be fairly transparent with my candidates and letting them know why they weren't the right fit, or how they may have answered a certain question that they could possibly adjust going forward in the future that will help them be more successful. I'll tell you a story of a candidate that came in. He had experienced job loss back in 2008. He literally walked into my office, sat down, crossed his arms, and looked at me and said, "What are you going to do for me?" I continued the interview on for a little bit, but he sat very much stiff and upset. He had lost his job that he had been at for 20 years, and he was very angry. He was angry that he lost his job. And in his mind, I was here to do something for him. And so I finally pushed away the paperwork, and I said to him that I felt we should have a chat. And one of the things I wanted to share with him was that it was really important that he start looking at his job search from a very different perspective. If he were to go into an interview and say, "This is what I can do for you, and here's what I learned from the last 20 years. Here's the silver lining of my experience." The feedback I was able to give him on that particular instance allowed him to go to his next interview, which had nothing to do with me as a recruiter, by the way. And he landed his next job, his next interview, the very next one that he went into, he landed that job. And he had been to many, many interviews previous to that, because he still hadn't processed what had happened to him, and he was expectant that everybody owed him something. The problem with that "you owe me something" attitude is that it doesn't come across very positively in an interview. So, trying to give you that interview feedback, it's really important. And do feel free to ask for that feedback as well. You can always email your recruiter. You can also email a hiring manager and ask them for feedback on how the interview went, if they have let you know that you weren't the right fit. We can offer interview tips, and I just touched on that a little bit, but with a focus on interviewing in the digital world, everything's changed. Everything is done by video now. Fewer and fewer people are meeting in person. A lot of the interviews, especially on the IT side, a lot of the roles that we have can actually be done digitally. So we want to make sure that we are providing you with everything that you need. We know this process sucks. We understand that. Believe me, sometimes it's not so great for us either. We do see the complications around the process of interviewing. We know that this could take much longer time than it used to take. Once upon a time, you could go out with your resume, pound the pavement, hand that resume and come home with a job at the end of the day. And I say that because that's how I used to go out and get work. A lot of that has changed now. You've got a lot of process around it. There's a lot of very careful decisions being made. And sometimes that new role for an organization interviews in what that's going to look like. What we will try to do is keep you as a recruiter as informed as we possibly can about that process and what that looks like. I recommend that you actually ask the clients or the recruiters that you ask those questions. So some of the things that you can do, and I'm going to start with this one just because of the current situation that we're in. Approach every person you meet with empathy. And I hear a lot of eye rolling about empathy, a sales pitch, make a sales pitch with empathy, but it's right now true. The reality is COVID is impacting all of us. It's impacting everyone you know. It's impacting HR managers, recruiters, hiring managers, and honestly, most importantly, right now, if you are in a situation of job loss, you. So what you need to know, and I think I mentioned this before, recruiters have upwards of 20 plus projects, especially agency recruiters. Things are a little quieter right now, but we're also seeing a surge in applications. We're looking at HR people who are rewriting policies for people to work from home. We're looking at HR people who are now working from home and possibly have families, much like yourself being at home. If you have a family, things have changed. You might be experiencing grief and frustration and fear, especially if you have lost your job and you're not exactly sure how to approach that. One of the things I can tell you is exactly what I said about the gentleman who had walked into the room and said, "What are you going to do for me?" One of the things that really helped me when I was making a job change, and I've used this with my candidates and my clients and so many people that have been in this situation, because I know that a career is a part of a person's identity. Maybe it shouldn't be, but I think for the most part, if we've lost our job, we feel like we weren't good enough to do our job. So how do you approach that in an interview? You got to practice it. Go out and do some research. Really think about the things that you loved about where you were and how to speak to those things. Speak to not that there was, frustration in the workplace, but how you approach that frustration. How would you go about speaking to that with a silver lining, as cheesy as that sounds? And I understand that's cliche, but it really makes a big difference. And make sure that you're talking to family and friends and practicing how you're going to present this message before you ever get into that interview. That gentleman that I said to him, talk about what you can do for the company. What can you do for that company? What do you have that is this huge wealth of knowledge and experience that you can speak to, translate that into a resume, and then take into an interview with you? What can you do for them? What they can do for you will start to come as you build a relationship with them. And that's really what this is all about. An interview is an opportunity to build a relationship. Even if it's not quite the right fit, there are always opportunities and networking opportunities down the road where I've had clients prefer candidates to me that they've interviewed, weren't the right fit, but they sent them to me because they saw something in them. So every interview you go to is an opportunity to build a relationship, to build a network, and you're going to want to practice before you get there. I can honestly tell you shouldn't just work with one recruiter. You should work with a couple of recruiters. I don't think you should work with 15. Not all recruiters are the same as everybody else. You'll do your research on recruiters. It's okay to look them up as much as they're looking you up. So if you want to go out to market and look up recruiters, look at their social media, look at their Twitter accounts, look at their LinkedIn feeds. What are they talking about? What are they posting? What kind of jobs do they have? And then start to have conversations with them. Email them your resume direct. That is okay. You can apply direct to the job as well, but you can also, I often get emails from people saying, "I've just applied to your job. I would love to speak with you." Those are emails that make me sit up and take notice. So when you're working with recruiters, do understand that because of the number of projects they have and the number of people that they're speaking to on a daily basis, that there is some onus on you to communicate with them and not necessarily always expect them to be able to communicate with you. When we're working through projects, we start with one project, we're headhunting, we're sourcing, we're pre-screening, we're interviewing, and then we're moving on to the next project. That could be 20 projects out that we're cycling through and we're trying to find people for. So often there's a gap in when they start recruiting for an opportunity and when they can circle back to that opportunity to work on it again. So always feel free to reach out to your recruiter and ask them how things are going. The other thing I do highly suggest is using your network, family, friends, LinkedIn, social media. Put out there that you're looking for work. Have those conversations with people. Ask who they know. You know, recently been working with someone that I've managed to refer out to 5 or 6 other strong women that I think she should be networking with and she's interested in networking with. And those are great experiences. And through those experiences, you can actually find what you're looking for. Don't just rely on a recruiter. Right now, recruiters' loads are maybe a little bit lighter. Companies are a little bit, they are hiring. They are definitely hiring. Keep that in mind. There's job placements happening all over the place. Companies are still hiring, but some hiring is on a bit of a freeze. So don't just rely on a recruiter to get you the job that you're looking for. Make sure that you are buffing up your LinkedIn profile, that you are looking at your social media, that you're getting your name out there in regards to what you're looking at. And here's some of the things to focus on, the little details. Your resume is important. I'm not sure if you know this, but when you put your resume through Indeed, it spits it out the other end and it does not look like the resume that you put in. They don't always look fantastic. Applicant tracking systems actually have trouble with PDFs. They have trouble seeing PDFs in a way that makes sense to the applicant tracking system. There's also keywords that the applicant tracking system looks for. Keywords matter. And so when we're looking at paying attention to the details, how do you want to get found? Your LinkedIn profile should speak to keywords that recruiters and hiring managers are going to use to find you. Your social media presence. Do you have a positive social media presence? Do you have a negative social media presence? Do you have a Twitter account that maybe looks a little bit like a troll account? You're going to want to think about these things. I actually just saw yesterday on Twitter, I watched this unfold last night live, where a gentleman trolled a woman, and that particular individual, because it was an extremely negative interaction, proceeded to find his workplace and find his church. And these are things that are real. They are happening. Recruiters do go out to market and pay attention to your social media profiles. So understand that if you have a social media profile that maybe shouldn't be seen by the public, you should probably really pay attention to that. Keep your social media profiles positive and open, and think about how people are going to view that if they happen to come across it when they're out looking for you. We have tools that we use, and I call them web scrapers, but if I land on a LinkedIn page, I've got a tool that will actually tell me if you have other social media profiles out there. So I can jump to your Twitter profile if you happen to have one linked to you. I can jump to your Facebook profile if you happen to have one linked to you. And it's my job to do that. It's my job to try and find a way to communicate with you most often than not. And that could include Twitter messages, that could include Facebook messages. So keep in mind that your social media profiles matter. Do your research on the company. Who are the leaders? What do their company reviews look like? What are their mission, visions, values? One of the most important things you're trying to do is actually figure out where you're going to stop and land and stay. We as recruiters are trying to help you make sure that where we place you, you're going to thrive. It's important to us. We don't want to have you leave the organization and have to do that search all over again. Not to mention, especially if we headhunted you, if we're bringing you into the fold and pulling you out of an opportunity that you were currently in, we want to make sure that you're in the right role, that it's actually the right fit for you. My biggest tip, especially right now, considering the circumstances that we're under and the distancing and the idea that everything is going digital, you need to practice, but I want you to keep that in your mind, because how you sound on the phone when the first conversation you're having with a recruiter is on the phone is very, very important. Do you sound monotone? Do you sound deadpan? Do you sound engaged and excited to speak to them? These things are important. Think about what you want and the why. So when I talk about your story, your career story, where you've come from, what was important to you, and thinking about that silver lining is actually what's important to you. The silver lining of where you were and what you love to do is going to help you find that career that you're looking for in the future. Don't apply to a million different roles, especially at one company. If if you're applying to 25 roles, every role that a company has posted, me as the recruiter, I have an applicant tracking system. You've created a profile in my applicant tracking system. I can see every role that you're applying to. And it's really important that you choose the ones that are the closest and best fit to who you actually are, what you actually bring to the table. It is important to read the job descriptions and try to match your skill set to them, not only in the skills, but also on your resume. Every job you apply to has different keywords. Every recruiter has a number of projects they're looking for, and they are skimming your resume for those keywords to see if you're going to be a fit for the opportunity. If you're applying for a tech role and you're not talking about any of the tech that's listed in the job description, please don't list things in your resume that you don't have experience for. That's going to get found out in an interview. But it's really important that you actually take the time to match your resume, not only to the job description itself, but also to how you want to be found on LinkedIn. What is it that you really want to do? Those keywords matter. They will help you get found for the roles you're actually interested in. They also help you get through the applicant tracking system. So keywords, when you're, but keywords can actually, if they aren't present, you could be rejected automatically by an artificial intelligence. And the truth is we want to get you as close to the hiring manager as possible and actually looking at your resume to inspire a conversation. Think about what's important to you going forward. I had touched on the creative offers and working with the recruiter to actually put together a creative offer. What's important? Salary, vacation, benefits. You know, if you were to take a step back, well, in salary, is it in a direction that is going to actually take you to the next level of your career? You know, someone who's someone who has experience, let's say, as a BA, but wants to become a PM, unless you've been developing those skill sets in tandem with each other, if you want to switch over to a PM, you may have to take a step back, because while you're a more senior BA or you're an intermediate BA, when you switch over to a project manager, you're actually more junior. And the companies are looking for you to check off the boxes on their job description. So regardless of how senior you are as far as career goes, you may be junior for a role when you're switching directions. So that's something to think about. And then what could you do in regards to taking that step back that would help you balance that? Yes, you are senior in the industry. Maybe you can ask for more vacations. There's certainly ways to make something work that's going to be satisfactory for both sides. So it used to be like this. When a developer updated their LinkedIn page, every recruiter on the planet just rushed at them. I can't remember how many times I've seen profiles where developers have actually put on the top of their page, if you're a recruiter, don't talk to me. Because every time they made a change to their LinkedIn, every recruiter in the country was all over them. It's no longer that market. The market has changed. So in event of the layoffs and the changes to the economy that we've seen, this is now for the first time in 10 years, an employer market, not a candidate market. So really the last time I saw that was 2008, 2009. And that is something to keep in mind when you are making a change. This is not the same market that we had 4 years ago or 3 years ago, or even last year, where especially technical people with a technical background or a finance background had 2 to 3 offers minimum. This is changing, and those jobs are a little bit more scarce right now. So this is why I talk about the details, your social media profile, you know, the attention to the details in your resume, punctuation. Get someone to take a second glance at your resume, not just your own eyes, because they can catch things that maybe you didn't catch. Those are the details that are going to help you actually stand out. I tend to be a little bit more flexible on that front. I'll help people make those small changes, but there are many managers that I've worked with that see a resume with a high attention to detail listed in their profile, and then they look down the page and there's a spelling mistake. Those two things don't speak to each other well. So you're really going to want to make sure that happens. Updating your LinkedIn profile. The competent, and I'm also realizing that some of the most competent professionals do have weak resumes. They don't know how to speak to their own story. Everything that you do in your career, you do like you're breathing. You don't realize how talented you are until you take the opportunity to meet with someone who actually has the skill set to Literally dig around in your head, pull out the information of what you've been doing and put that down on paper. I remember the first time I went to see someone who wrote resumes, and he handed me back my resume after putting it together, and I looked at it, I looked at him, and I said, "That's not me." And he said, "You answered the questions, right?" I said, "Yes, as a matter of fact, I did." And he said, "Then that's you. This is you. This is just you in a way that you're not used to seeing yourself." Everything I did, I had done through mostly instinct. And, I had certain skill sets, but I didn't realize they were skill sets. That transferred to paper really well. And it made a huge difference in going out and making a change in my career. So LinkedIn profiles, you would upload your resume. Again, you're going to want to tweak those so that they speak to the keywords that you want to get found for. Where do you want to go? We touched on privacy of social media accounts. Are they professional? Don't forget about YouTube. Don't forget about TikTok. Actually, there was a recruiter just recently that accidentally didn't mark some of his TikTok videos private, and he was kind of apologizing to the public world because he was using TikTok for work as well. And he had to say, yeah, no, those ones were not meant for everybody. So be careful when you're posting these things, because you just never know who's actually going to see them. Favorite tips: recruiters use Boolean. And I've the internet. We're either building them in LinkedIn or we're building them on on the web, on Google. We're putting together search strings, and we are coming up with titles and companies. We're sweeping company pages. We get very, very in-depth when it comes to how to find people, and using Boolean as a language to build search strings to bring back results. We want you to understand that we know applicant tracking systems are a pain. I don't know, I mentioned about the applicant tracking systems before, that keywords can rule you out if you don't have them present. I had also mentioned about PDFs. If your the applicant tracking system that you're applying into often can't see the information in the header. So headers have trouble on PDF or on applicant tracking systems for some reason. They can't see them. So don't put your email and address and contact information into the header, because it doesn't always make it into the applicant tracking system. Try to keep your try to use a Word document if you can when you're uploading into an applicant tracking system, because PDFs don't read well in applicant tracking systems. They come out jumbled. So the ATS can't actually see the information in an organized way. It actually, I've seen them linked together as one entire long sentence. Your whole resume just goes in as one long sentence. So Word docs are my best tip. Keep your information out of the header. Don't put a bunch of images and logos on there if you can avoid it. That's fine if there's some. But what you're trying to understand is that when you're uploading this into an applicant tracking system, it's trying to take all your information and load that into the system in a way that a recruiter can actually read it. And again, we search our applicant tracking systems for keywords. So we're going to be looking for certain types of information. And it's a lot better for you long-term to get found if we can actually read your resume. So some of the tips on optimizing LinkedIn. This is right at the top. You can see up here under Android developer, no recruiters, please. You can do the opposite of that as well. So I kind of made a joke about, previous to this change, what that looked like when a developer was getting headhunted on LinkedIn often. You can put currently looking for my next career move, or, open to new opportunities underneath your name or in and around your name, as well as the title of what you do. Recruiters will go after the lowest hanging fruit. So make it clear on your LinkedIn page that you are looking and you are open for opportunities. Because when I see that, I go to those profiles first to check them out, okay? Use that LinkedIn profile to the best of your ability. Make sure when you're filling out your summary that it's clean, there are no errors, there are no spelling errors. Again, just like your resume, get someone to review those details for you. We understand, like I said, that struggle is real. We know it's a problem. Problem is that recruiters aren't always the one making these applicant tracking systems, so we've learned how to work with them and try to surpass some of those challenges. These are all some of the things that we talked about: PDFs, addresses in the header. Some of the other tools that we use, profiling tools, I will often profile my candidates during the process. That's a personality profiling tool, and really what we're looking for is a snapshot of your personality in the workplace. Always try to remember when you're filling one of these out that you typically get a copy back, and it is such a wonderful tool for self-awareness. You can take it out on almost any interview you go on once you've been through one, but try to keep in mind that you're thinking about work when you're answering these questions. So, how would you behave in a certain situation in the workplace when you're filling these out? We use them for communication tools here at Resolute. We use them for team members to better communicate with each other. Typically, the further apart you are from someone on a profile, the more risk there is of not understanding each other. And I'm not going to say conflict, because that's not necessarily the case, but you don't necessarily understand that person because they're so different from you. So we use them to actually help people meet in the middle of the room. So don't be afraid to do those profiles when they come your way. They're fantastic, and they're, like I said, a wonderful self-awareness tool. Share with the hiring managers if you have one. Take them out on interviews with you. Say, hey, I did this profile, have a look at it. So it's a great thing for them to see, and you're only helping yourself when you do that. Other documents as required. I often have my candidates fill out a career planning document. So that career planning document is something that helps me understand what you want. That's where we're talking about transparency. What is it you're really looking for? What do you love to do? What's important to you? What are your expectations around salary and vacation and career? I like to be as transparent with my clients and my hiring managers as I can. So we want to make sure that we're helping you to the best of our ability on that front. Also to see your written communication style. Did you take the time to fill it out? If we need someone who's going to have a high attention to detail, are they taking the time to really work through that process and share it with us? There are reasons that we use those documents. We understand that that can feel like you're typing in your resume all over again, but we're looking for a slightly different perspective, and we're looking for how you choose to communicate with us, which is an important part of the process. So if I can ask that people are patient with that process and really help me help you, that's really what we're looking for, the why of what you're doing with your career. I mentioned Indeed resumes. Those things, they are terrible. They go in one side looking one way, they come out the other looking another. So I actually suggest once you've started communicating with the recruiter that you offer to send them your resume in its proper format once you've had an opportunity to speak with them and they've reached out to you, because that will help with when we're presenting those resumes to hiring managers. We just want to help. That's what it comes down to. So help me help you. When I am asking you to go through some of these steps, as painstaking as they can be, or as repetitive as they may seem to be, it's such an important process of trying to get to know you and what you want and what you need, and making sure that actually matches what the clients and the hiring managers are looking for as well. We want you to thrive, and that's really the end of what we're trying to accomplish for both you and our managers. Video and interview tips. This is a fairly new, it's not new. I've been doing video interviews with candidates for a very long time, but I would say this is the new normal. It's not going away. So it's really important to sound animated on the phone, engage. Telephone interviews are the first step. How's your voice sound? And please speak slower. So when you're excited about something, you tend to speak quickly. And when you're speaking quickly, we are trying to keep up with you and capture that information as closely and as accurately as possible. So when we slow you down or ask you to slow down, we are just trying to keep up with you. And we know it's through pure excitement that you've got a lot to tell us in a short period of time, but we kind of need you to take that opportunity to really speak and communicate clearly with us. For the love of all things recruiting and hiring, please put on pants. I don't love that I have to say this out loud, but it was only a month ago that a reporter got caught on his video journalistic presentation with no pants on. And true story, about 8 years ago, I had a candidate that was at a video interview, Skype interview with a client, and his doorbell rang, and they insisted that he go answer it, that it was okay because the doorbell kept ringing, and he got up and he had no pants on. So I can't believe I still have to say this, but please put on pants. All of us recruiters and hiring managers would truly appreciate that. I just can't express it enough. Please wear pants. Turn off any filters or Snapchat filters that you happen to have installed on your computer. Even here at an IT company, we had someone playing with Snapchat filters, and he jumped into a meeting with our CIO and a few other managers, and he couldn't figure out how to turn off that Snapchat filter, and I'm fairly certain he was a potato head for the entire interview or for the entire meeting. So I think some Religious leaders have done that recently. They conducted an entire service with a Snapchat filter on. So you want to make sure that, while I would find that hilarious, a lot of places won't find that professional at all. Please make sure you test your environment before you sit down to one of these. Prepare your environment. Make sure you're in a place that's quiet. Make sure you're in a place that is not going to have a lot of foot traffic. Let your interviewer know if you've got littles around, or try to keep your cats out of the room or your dogs out of the room. A barking dog in the background, it's going to happen. A child running into the video, it's going to happen. But if you can, do everything you can to control that, just so that you've got the opportunity to concentrate and be at your best. Set up your camera to be at eye level. Often I see so many people and they're literally, it's a shot right up their nostrils. So look at this as trying to look at someone at eye level across the desk from you. If you can put it on your books, do whatever you've got to do to get your web camera or your laptop at a level that's actually going to look professional and not in a way that is going to take away from who you actually are in the conversation that's actually happening. And again, practice with the technology. Make sure you know how it works. Make sure your microphone works. Make sure that your headset works. Practice with friends. Hold Zoom meetings with some family members. Just do what you have to do to be prepared for the interview to the best of your ability. So we know this is unprecedented. We know this is an emotionally challenging time. What I can tell you is that it's emotionally challenging on both sides of the fence. I cannot express how difficult it's been to see so many people that I know go down around me with career loss and change and layoffs and all the things that are happening right now. Companies are actually hiring. Things are frozen, but companies are hiring. That includes Resolute. Talk to your network. Check your job boards daily. We're in this together. I know that's cliche, but it's true. We care. Every recruiter that I have spoken to over the past couple of weeks that I let know that we were doing this webinar, they were interested. They appreciated it. The hiring managers, they're interested. They appreciate it. We want to help you, and we understand what it's like to be on that side of the fence. Everything is changing. COVID is affecting how we interview, where we work, how we will be onboarding people, policies and processes, and the timelines. Make sure you feel free to ask about those timelines when you're dealing with your recruiters. Just good advice, follow up. Candidates, yes, we do lose you in the shuffle. I don't want to say that that's the right thing, but it is the truth. If someone follows up with me, I'm going to do my very best to get back to them. And if you haven't heard from your recruiter or your hiring manager, please do feel free to send an email saying, I am wondering how things are going. When you send that email, just be empathetic about it. We're all in the storm, but we're not in the same boat, and we know that. So try to send those emails with kindness, try to reach out with kindness, try to approach every situation that you're approaching, or every interview that you're approaching, with some kindness, including to yourself, which is probably by far the most important one. Make sure you ask for that feedback. It's okay to know what the holdup is, or to ask what the holdup is, or why you aren't the right fit, or if someone comes back to you and says, you know what, you're not the right fit. Be okay with the answer if they have actually chosen to give you some feedback, and I can't promise that everyone will, but if you do get feedback, be okay with that answer. Take that information and use it to benefit yourself going forward on how to maybe answer a question differently, or maybe just the career line that you're looking at, that you're just not the right fit for that particular career line. Be prepared to clarify your career path. It's okay to want to change career lines, but you've got to clarify why you're going there and what it is that you want to do with yourself, and be able to actually speak to it. I changed career paths. I did a complete about face from where I was to where I am now. And I did that because I was able to identify what I had that were transferable skills in a way that translated to what I wanted to do and how I wanted to make a change. Be creative with your approach. There are virtual career fairs that are happening these days. There is virtual networking events that are happening all over the place. Look up meetups. There are many, many virtual meetups that are available now, as well as hopefully when things settle down, you can go back to normal networking meetups. There are so many meetups here in Winnipeg and across Canada. And the great thing is that these things becoming virtual now have changed all of the paths that we can go down in regards to how we're choosing to network. So there's a lot of opportunities that could possibly open up to you. be prepared that this could take some time. The hiring process is longer. The need for companies to maybe tighten their belts a little bit financially speaking and just put a pause on things could stretch out the process. Resources are lacking in regards to certain organizations laying off people, and now they're doing more work. So the process could be longer. Last but not least, like I said, be compassionate to others and be compassionate to yourself during the process. I wanted to touch on out-of-country applicants. This is the very last slide. We do sometimes, most recruiters don't recruit internationally, but there are a number of missions that have taken place with organizations now, mostly through Yes Winnipeg or through companies like Van Hack. Those are places that you can look into if you're an international applicant to find out the best way. Legally speaking, recruiters are not, for the most part, allowed to recruit out of country because there are a number of hoops we have to jump through and a number of costs that are required. The labor market assessments, we have a lot of processes we have to follow before we're able to move ahead with an international recruitment, including proving that we couldn't find someone in Canada. So there's the resources here on the page that you can visit. This whole video webinar will be available at some point in the very near future, so you should be able to follow up and grab these resources from our page here. So that's everything. Thank you so much, everybody, for dropping by. I'm going to open it up to Q&A now, just in case anybody has some questions that they would be looking to have answered. I'll do my very best, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Does anybody have any questions at all? Feel free to please type them into the Q&A or into the chat area as well. So I've got a question here. Do most recruiters use the applicant tracking system to filter resumes? How does an applicant know how to match their resume to the job keywords? Can you show a sample storytelling resume and how it matches the job description? I can do that, and I can maybe make some of those resources available in the near future. I don't have anything like that prepared right now, but do most recruiters use screening through the applicant tracking system? I actually don't know the answer to that question. I have personally never done it. I prefer to look at a resume myself with my own eyes and decide whether or not I'm moving ahead. I can tell you that I reject resumes when they don't have the keywords that I'm looking for. 98% of the keywords that you are looking for are found in the job description. I am not recommending that you cut and paste a job description into your resume. I'm also not recommending that you put information in your resume that is not valid. So for example, one of the things that I see technology people do quite a bit is they make a table of the types of technologies they've worked with, and you'll see Java on it. And then in speaking with them, I find out that their only Java experience is out of school. So they've worked with Java in school, but they haven't worked with it since then. There are ways to break up tables like that to make it a little more clear. But yes, applicant tracking systems and hiring managers alike are looking at the keywords to figure out if they are going to take you to the next level, which is a pre-screen. So do your homework. And the language in the job manager is looking for. Presentation slides, we will actually be posting this video, and yes, we can share the presentation slides as well in one form or another. I'll just have to take some time to get that ready for everybody. The resource links, those will also be available in the preset or in the slides as well as the video, which we have recorded. Employers, do they read cover letters? I read cover letters when they're posted in an email. So when I see cover letters come in, I do skim them, especially if they're in the email and then the resume is attached, because I tend to read the email. So my suggestion is when you're sending a cover letter, make it a one-paragraph snapshot of why you are a good fit, aka some of the points in the job description for the opportunity, and put that in your email. If I have two separate attachments, if there's a choice between looking at a cover letter or a resume, I always go to the resume first. So your cover letter should speak closely to, I guess, the profile that you're sending us, and the profile should, for the most part, at least a couple of bullet points should reflect not only some of your characteristics, but also some of your skills that do speak to the job that you are applying for. And again, I know that this is a pain in regards to how we want you to share that information with us, but we get hundreds of resumes and we have to choose the resumes that seem to speak to the job that we are trying to interview for. Do one-page resumes, or are one-page resumes good for senior profiles with 20 years of experience? I am not a fan of a one-page resume. I'm an IT recruiter, so maybe someone else might give you a different answer, but I'm an IT recruiter. I'm okay with a 3-page resume. I don't need a 20-page resume. I know that there are profile documents that are often set up, especially if you're on the consulting side, that would give us a much better snapshot of your projects that you've worked on. So in some cases, after we've spoken, I might ask for a profile-focused or a project-focused document or resume that would help me understand a little bit more, or help me share with my hiring managers a little more clearly what your skill sets are. But I've never really felt that a one-page resume can do anyone justice, especially on the technical side. That may be different for other areas and other recruiters, but I don't think so. I think a 2-page to a 3-page resume is usually quite acceptable. Any further suggestions on how to network when many of the venues where people meet, coffee shops, restaurants, conference places, are closed beside Zoom calls? Virtual career fairs, virtual meetups. So many of these places are offering and are changing as rapidly as we have, for example, into working from home overnight or holding virtual conferences. I am signed up actually today for a virtual networking conference for recruiters, Canadian only, Canada only recruiters. So I'm going to be attending that a little later this afternoon, and that is because I am going to be looking to figure out what the best practices are in some of these situations. I'm still learning and I'm still growing in regards to this whole entire shift in how we are doing business. Just a few more questions here that I'll have time to answer before it's 11 o'clock. Regarding multiple applications, when a large company regularly posts openings with the same title but in a different department, is it viewed negatively that a qualified applicant is applying for them? I think that you should do that with care. Different larger organizations, and I'll just, for an example, use Wawanesa. Wawanesa has different recruiters focused on different lines internally. So different lines of business have different recruiters that focus on that, because then that recruiter can get some depth. Often those recruiters aren't necessarily speaking to each other, but they are often working through the same applicant system. So, and when I say not speaking to each other, I mean they are not regularly consulting on their candidates. They may move candidates from one place to another internally. I can't speak to that too closely because I don't work at Wawanesa, but I know often there are so many jobs that are posted, not all the recruiters know who's working with what candidate. They do their best, and that's why an applicant tracking system exists. But if you're applying to 20 roles within one organization, that honestly, I can tell you, just doesn't ever look good. If you're applying for a couple of roles that you are truly qualified for across different lines of business, if they have the same job description, I would say for sure, go ahead and do that, but just do it with caution, okay? Most big company applications I've done, I've used similar resume and then focused on cover letter to target specific items of the role. I suggest adapting the resume for every application. Yes, absolutely. Because, like I said, when I have the opportunity to look at 2 different documents, and one of them is a separate attachment of a cover letter and the other one is a resume, due to time constraints, I'm going straight to resume because that's the meat. That's what I'm looking for. I want to see what you've done. I want to see how you've done it, where you've done it, and I want to make sure that what's in the resume is what I'm looking for. I've heard a lot of hiring managers say to me, if it's not in the resume, it didn't happen. So the cover letter will not get you through the door. The cover letter will get you through the door in conjunction with your resume. So make sure, and again, keywords for applicant tracking systems, make sure your resume is getting where it needs to go, okay? How to find the best and right recruiter. We've got about 30 seconds or a minute here. How to find the best and right recruiter when free job portals like LinkedIn, Indeed, etc. doesn't help for senior professionals. Does Google help? How to find the best and right recruiter. I would search LinkedIn for recruiters. I would take a closer look at what recruiters are doing, what type of jobs they have, whether or not they have reviews posted online. You can, once you find a recruiter on LinkedIn in your area, make sure they're in your area. First of all, that and what I mean by area is in line of business, and either in the province or they are recruiting across Canada, but that they have a good reputation. Recruiters have reviews, and recruiters that have a good social media presence tend to be recruiters who are, if they're having positive conversations with people online, these are recruiters that are having positive conversations with their candidates. So I would suggest doing your research on a recruiter for sure, but you can search them off LinkedIn. So you can find a recruiter on LinkedIn and then search them on Google to see if there are any reviews on them. Let's say on Glassdoor, that could lead you to company reviews about the recruiter, like what company they're working for. Research is everything, and I do believe that's on you to definitely take the time to do that. How do I find a recruiter's direct contact, especially when job adverts are posted on job boards? Most recruiters should have, their agency recruiters should have their email on their LinkedIn profiles somewhere. Hiring managers, that's a little different, but you can also reach out to hiring managers through LinkedIn. But my best advice on that is to get referred to a hiring manager. So, if you've got a relationship with someone who happens to know that hiring manager, you can certainly ask questions about it, ask questions or ask to be introduced. I've introduced lots of people to each other in the many years that I've been doing this, and so do so many other recruiters. So, keep in mind that a recruiter, due to the project load they have, it might take them a little while to get back with you or get back to you, but most of them, their emails are posted online somewhere, whether that's on the company website or whether that's on a LinkedIn page. One last question here, because I think we're running out of time. Actually, we have a little bit gone over. What advice would you give someone with multiple work experience ranging from customer service, administration, human resources, supply chain? How would an applicant represent all these experiences on their resumes? I would say your resume should speak to the job that you are applying to. So if you're applying for an HR role, you'll focus on your HR experience and you'll minimize the other experience. If you're focusing on an administration role, you're going to focus on your administration experience. So it's really tailored to each role every time you apply and which ones you want to highlight. So if you're applying to an HR role, your profile would highlight your HR experience, and then you would speak to that experience in your resume in depth. Okay, everyone, I think that's about it. That's about all we have time for. We're actually a little bit over. Thank you so much for coming. I hope this was a huge help. I will try to answer the rest of your questions going forward as well. You can always find me on LinkedIn at Marnie Barnes, MarnyBarnes. My email is also below here. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me an invite, and we can continue answering some of your questions there over the next couple of days. I hope you all have a great day, and thank you again so much for coming. Bye.